if people are going to be super stressed, adding things for them to remember to do, like what to do with their hands, what to do with their voice and all that stuff, is just going to stress them even more. Because maybe a particular hand gesture really doesn't fit that person and it'll make it more awkward.
The job of practicing and learning those more physical skills is not to improve you as a speaker, is to make you suck less as a speaker, is to remove the suck.
Being incredibly awkward or stilted or not having any vocal variety, you're much more likely to lose people's interest than you are if you get that stuff right to get their buy-in. Welcome to the SpeakerPath. I'm Brian Miller, founder and principal consultant at Clarity Up.
I'm Francisco Mafuz, the story specialist at Clarity Up.
I'm Jana Joksma, Joe for Friends, and I'm the presence and performance specialist at Clarity Up.
As you know, I escaped from Toastmasters a few years ago. And ever since, I got more into speaking and helping people and coaching people, all sorts of things. But ever since, every time I look on LinkedIn or other social media, and I see these sort of speaker coaches, and a lot of them talk about the hand gestures to come across as powerful and your vocal variety and, this is how you stand and all these things. And I look at that and I watch it and I can't help thinking that it's just nonsense, right? No one who's a crap speaker is going to become a good speaker for doing those things. And even if you nail them, 100%, whatever that might even look, I don't even know if perfect vocal variety even looks like. I think it just sounding like a human being. Even if you are the best person in the world at doing those things, what's that expression? You can polish a turd.
It's a turd.
There you go.
I was really curious what you were going to say.
Yes. No, but I was just thinking if there was a different word there. That's my initial impression, right? But I know that a lot of those people get raving reviews from their clients who feel that they've transformed the way they communicate. So clearly I'm the one in the wrong here, at least to some degree. So explain to me why I'm just being a douche and this is not...
this will be our least controversial episode yet.
Yes.
So I have a story to share.
No, what are you doing? Oh, Jesus, no.
So I was sitting in this conference room and minding my own business, doing stuff on my phone. The speaker was giving I was actually listening, but just not looking up. Their voice was amazing. I felt like, I was totally transported into their story. I look up at the very end to see that he was reading. He read his entire speech with really nice intonation and great pauses and vocal variety and all that stuff. So something worked. Obviously not enough because I didn't look up from my phone while he was speaking, but it was enough to kind of, keep me listening and tuning in. So there is something there about it. I've also literally fallen asleep in class when professors had that droning voice that would just, go completely level from start to finish, no pauses, no intonation, no anything. So, that also says something about my attitude and personal life as a student, but let's put that to the side for now. So the voice anchors our attention. Gestures anchor our attention. Vanessa Van Edwards, who's a behavioral researcher, she has this study around the most successful, most viral TED and TEDx talks. And it turns out that they all include more than 400 hand gestures per 10 to 15 minute videos. Right? That's it. So these things make a difference. But if what you're working on is just form for the sake of form, I don't think that's going to stick. So my approach is using these things to help the speaker, first of all, help the speaker anchor and internalize the talk for themselves, help them express it in the way that they want to express it, in a way that fits their personality, their style, all of those things, right? If you've got like a nice, quiet, fragile person, you're not going to make them, do all this big type of thing.
For obvious reasons.
Right?
Especially not on Zoom.
If you've got someone who is bombastic by nature and, is comfortable with that, then maybe they are even doing it a little too much and they need to be reined in. So it starts from the speaker for me. And it's less about the algorithm and what they should or shouldn't be doing.
So to me, I don't disagree with most of what you said there. I think to me that where people get this wrong is that the job of practicing and learning those more physical skills is not to improve you as a speaker, is to make you suck less as a speaker, is to remove the suck, right?
I agree.
So something that just came to mind was, if you can't stand up because you have a broken leg or whatever, crutches are great, right? They'll allow you to stand up, they'll allow you to move around. But if you
can also use a chair.
Yes, not to stand up. You're messing my metaphors. let me get to the end of them. But there comes a point where if you try running with the crutches or just doing anything else, it's like, why you can walk normally. Why are you running with crutches? Just weird, right? My 8-year-old had a friend over a few days ago, and the girl walked in with a crutch. And I'm like, should anything happen to her? Yeah, she hurt her leg. I was like, okay, fine. And then 10 minutes later, the girl was just walking around the house normally. And I'm like, hold on, what's going on here? And then the crutch came back on again. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? It's like, oh, she just fences walking around with a crutch. I was like, what? That is just weird, right? And this is what these people are trying to do. Like, you can, like the hand gestures, your point, like 400 hand gestures. I guarantee, having never looked at that research, that what those hand gestures are not doing is miming the words that people are saying. Right. It's just like,
right. So and there's a difference too, and you got to be careful with research like that, right? Because what that tells us is the talks that are the most popular are ones with lots of hand gestures in them. It doesn't tell us that by doing lots of hand gestures you will have a popular talk. The logic's going the opposite direction. It's very much right. And so it's one of these, I think, to Francisco's point, like I obviously kind of agree with both of you right now, but it's like I also roll my eyes a lot at the purely whatever you would call that type of coaching. When you see speaker coach, which is why we don't use that term, and I got away from it years ago, why we use messaging consultant and private consultant for speakers, things like that. Speaker coaches tend to focus most of their effort on that: the hand gestures, the rise and fall of emotion, the vocal variety, all of these things, and staging blocking.
Filler words.
Yeah, getting rid of ums and ahs, as if Simon Sinek's not one of the top speakers in the world. He says 17 times every sentence, right? We know that getting rid of those is not required to be a top speaker. So I think that I do roll my eyes at that stuff, but there's obviously, I was an entertainer full-time for 10 years, and a lot of what I've learned in being successful as a speaker came from that. And I do know how to block, and I do know how to use hand gestures, and I do know how to be quote unquote charismatic on stage. But if what I was talking about wasn't interesting or well put together, it would only make it about 5 minutes. They'd be interested or engaged with me for about 5 minutes, maybe less, maybe more. And then if I don't have anything interesting to say, or if I'm not making sense, or if the points aren't in the right order, or if it's not valuable to them, or it's not relevant to them, who cares? They're going to tune out anyway. Meanwhile, I have sat in the audience where somebody read, Joe, to your point, where somebody effectively read a 1-hour speech. Like, they got to a podium, they put it down, and they had worked on exactly the right words. I saw it was a philosophy conference once. There was a big name philosopher, which nobody here has heard of, that had flown in to give the keynote, and they read their 1-hour speech word for word. It was a work of philosophy, and it was gripping, and he just read it. Not a lot of vocal variety, but because the ideas were so engaging and they were relevant to me and they made me think of things and there were examples, I didn't need him to be like, blah, I didn't need him to do that. And so is he going to be a high paid keynote speaker like at like a normal like conference? Probably not. But that wasn't what he was trying to be. He was giving the opening talk at a philosophers convention.
People do reading events, right? When people go on book tours, when they've published a book, they'll read like a little chapter of their book or poetry or whatever. So that's a thing. And the way that I come at this is, in the space of optimizing and leveling up something that a person already does pretty well or well enough to allow the space for that work. But also sometimes dealing with things like stage fright anxiety, or this idea we were talking about, these corporate contests earlier, where people need to manage up. So they need to be presentable at a different level from just having their concise ideas, because they won't get more than 5 or 10 minutes in that meeting anyway. So that forces them to work on their messaging. But then how that gets delivered can make or break their next promotion or them getting that investment, right? If it's a pitch, they often have 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And sure, I mean, there's still space for working on their structure, their content, the examples they use and all that stuff.
I think, though, to Francisco's earlier point, I think you're right, Joe. My guess is that 9 out of 10 times it breaks a performance more than it ever makes it. My guess is that by being incredibly awkward or stilted or dull or not having any vocal variety, you're much more likely to lose people's interest than you are if you get that stuff right to get their buy-in. It's like, do this in order to not accidentally, for no good reason, turn people off.
And here's another thing. If people are going to be super stressed, adding things for them to do, to remember to do, like what to do with their hands, what to do with their voice and all that stuff, is just going to stress them even more. Really? They have their content to remember on top of all that. That's the number one thing. They're going to be worried about saying everything in the right order. Now they also have to know what to do with their hands. Like, that's not the way to kind of add things to their to-do list, but rather in internalizing the talk or the message, right? Sometimes it's not a keynote. Sometimes it's a meeting that they need to do. Internalizing how they want to show up. Like, that would be the framework. And being able to embody that person. So it's, what part of your personality do you want to highlight in this context? And are you able to do that? Let's watch a recording of you doing this presentation. Are you conveying what you want to convey? If it's, executive presence or leadership or whatever it is, confidence, that's a big one for people. Yeah. Are you showing that? If not, let's see, where are the gaps and what do you feel comfortable with? Because maybe a particular hand gesture really doesn't fit that person and it'll make it more awkward, right? Or doing something with their voice and so on. So you need to experiment a little bit.
I think that there is a spectrum of people in this particular context where with some people, they are naturally confident. They are people who express themselves reasonably well, but then you put them in a situation that we are calling speaking, and then a whole bunch of obstacles are created by their own psyche, and the person goes up on stage, whatever, physical or metaphorical, and all of a sudden they don't sound like themselves anymore. They stutter, they look down, so I get that in those cases, all you're really trying to do is, I just want to give you the tools to just be you. Yeah. Like, when we just remove these other things that are making you nervous so you can't be you. There will be people on the other side of the spectrum who are not confident, who are not, you either give them 10 years of therapy or you teach them how to walk straight up and talk in a slightly different, register or whatever, and then you can kind of fake those things until they start buying into themselves a little more. So, I see those two sides of it. Where I disagree is with the idea that there is something to be added by, once you sound like you or enough like a human being, stop. There doesn't need any more focus on there, because all that's going to happen is you're going to do this thing. And I heard this about Toastmasters, and it was the best example I've ever heard this. The guy was talking about competitions, and he said, you have to keep in mind that a Toastmasters speaking competition is like figure skating, right? They're judging you on the pirouettes, so you go and do the pirouettes. Right? Yeah. But if you're just trying to skate from one place to another, right, you're not going to be jumping up in the air and spinning on one leg, because that would just be stupid. You're just trying to get from A to B, right? Yeah. And that's what I think.
I can almost get on board with that.
Yeah.
Brian, I see something on the tip of your tongue.
I just wanted to tag on that. We've worked with many speakers over the years who've been a part of the Speaker Slam world, which is this big North American kind of international inspirational speaking competition. And I've worked with speakers on those talks, and also I've judged many of those competitions and had them come over and become clients of ours. And the biggest quote unquote problem of the Speaker Slam setup, and I love what they do, but the problem is many of the people who go compete at Speaker Slam are hoping to become professional speakers, give keynotes and workshops in professional business context. And the judging criteria for Speaker Slam, in order to compete, to try to place in the competition, forces them into a bunch of the cosmetic stuff, aesthetic stuff, that and the story stuff in the same way. It forces them into a deep, open wound, vulnerable, everybody cries together type of storytelling that not only is not advisable, but actively doesn't work in most professional paid speaking contexts. And so, like you said about Toastmasters, Francisco, the arena in which you are trying to develop speaking skills matters a lot, which is why I would argue, bias noted, that the reason that us working with people on TEDx talks works so well for them to then go move on to the world of paid professional speaking is the framing around a TEDx talk encourages most of the behaviors as a speaker that are valuable in the world of paid professional speaking. The skills translate. We don't have to do anything weird.
That's right. So let me tell you where I want to challenge what you said about speaking like yourself. First off, that means we have one self. There's this fixed self, and I'm stepping into that. I'm kind of figuring out how to step into that, and that's me. And I find that it doesn't change from day to day, but I will not be equal to myself from day to day. I'll have better and worse days. And maybe, over an extended period of time, something in myself might change. People are not really fixed units. Also, I notice in my clients very often that they don't really know what that looks like. So becoming yourself, first of all, requires some trial and error, and seeing, actually that they think, oh, I'm really excited to be here today, but they're keeping a fully straight face. I've played videos on mute to so many speakers that I've worked with, and they say, oh my God, is that me? Especially in the startup space, if you see people pitching, they're really sometimes you see pain on people's faces because of the stress level, the stakes, and all that stuff. So first of all, be myself. Who is that? I don't really know. I need to figure that out. And maybe myself is a bit more elastic, a bit more fluid than this fixed concept. And maybe different parts of myself are appropriate and necessary in different types of speaking situations. So that's why I say, what part of yourself do you want to highlight for this particular thing? There's this theory in psychotherapy called internal family systems, where you look at the parts of the self, literally, different parts of the personality. And, you can create a whole persona for a part of you. It doesn't mean that you're being inauthentic. It just means you're giving more space to that part of you at that time.
What's Beyonce's thing? Sasha Fierce.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
right.
just one point to clarify that. I will never tell someone be yourself, right? That's it's like when the sports masseuse tells me relax. It's like, if I knew how to do it, I wouldn't be here. Just relax now.
Am I bad at relaxing?
You're tensing up.
I'm doing relaxing wrong.
Of course, I'm tensing up. That's why I'm here. I think that part of that that point of view comes from the thing that I hear most when I have a great speaking gig or workshop or whatever. The thing that people will tell me as a compliment is, you just look so comfortable up there, right? And it's not like, it's not necessarily the mode I am in. I mean, I am kind of a one-track person, right? So the mode I'm in a barbecue is not terribly different than the mode I am in on stage, because it's the same type of humor, it's the same, whatever, right? But it's this, like, I don't look like I'm miserable there. Like, this is just, somebody just pushed me here and I have to present this thing. So, I fully buy into the whole different selves. I think what we think of someone's self, it's very context specific.
Who you are when someone looks at you can feel really different and really on different levels of comfort from who you are when it's just you and your coach. Right?
And especially, that is something that was one of the starkest differences for me from going from the world of comedy magic to going to speaking, which is, in comedy magic, everything I do or say is supposed to elicit some kind of verbal or visual reaction from the audience. They're either their jaws are dropping, or they're going like this, or waving their arms, or they're laughing, or they're gasping. And then you go to speaking, and it's like, no, you could have 5, 6, 7, 8 minute long stretches where there's no verbal or visual reaction from the audience, and it doesn't mean you're failing. It might mean that they're right there with you, and they're following the argument, and they're thinking about how they're going to interpret this. And I freaked out. Like, I was a seasoned entertainer. I'd been on stage my whole life, and the first year or two of speaking, I was always freaking out on stage, because I'm like, are they getting this? Do they not like me? Do they, right? Is this a big waste? Am I a fraud? Like, I had all that until I realized, no, I actually,
How early in your career was this?
And I was a little bit, right? But also, I was getting positive feedback after the presentations. People were like, that was really interesting. I would never have thought of it that way. And so I had to actually learn over time that my experience in my own body is not the same on stage, is not the same experience that the audience is having of watching me. I have to divorce those two things and be okay with the fact that those are different experiences. And then the second big lesson for me, and that ties right back into what we're really talking about here, which is, that's when I started to discover that as a speaker, I got more confident and more comfortable when I mastered my content. I was already good at the entertainment stuff. I was already good at the engagement and the hands and the humor and all the stuff we're talking about, the presentation skills part. I was already good at that. Where my confidence was lacking was, I didn't think I actually knew what the hell I was talking about. I didn't know if what I was saying was interesting, if they were the right points, if they were making sense. And after I finally figured out how to give a talk that was exactly the right ideas in the right order with the right stories at the right times, and that it was landing, then I was confident on stage. My confidence came from the content being right, not from my ability to present well. And so and as you know, I've been on that, like, I've been ringing that bell ever since, that I think, with the exception of the serious glossophobia, the serious, I don't know if we call it pathological or a very, very serious fear of public speaking, which is a real thing. People have fear of spiders. I get it. But with the exception of that, I find that most of the presentation stuff works itself out when they're confident in the talk they're there to give. And in other words, they believe it's going to do the job that they're hoping the speech will do. If they're confident, because maybe they've spent 15 months working with us on an 8-minute talk, and even if they're getting their confidence from us, where we're going, no, this is it. These words exactly in this order. They're like, got it. And they can go up and do it. And they make their hand gestures and they smile appropriately, and they mostly are fine. Except for the very rare cases when they desperately need someone.
I guess there's the test I always think of is, at what level of content all of these problems show up, right? Because if I say, Joe, can you just please just get up here and just tell us, where were you born, sort of what did you study after school, and what was your experience working in this job was in regards to this particular obvious thing. You get up there and you tell us, you go, oh, okay, I'm not so used to doing this. I was born here. And you just sound like a normal person who's perhaps a little shy of public speaking. Okay, that was fine. Now, if I start giving you something a little more complicated, asking for a little more of you, and now all of a sudden you're stuttering and you're getting clammed up. Now, I'm guessing that it's more of a problem of you don't know what to say, and that makes you nervous, and that gets reflected in all sorts of ways. But if you get up there for the very first thing and you 100% know it and you're already incapable of doing it, sure, like that needs... Content is not going to fix that.
Joe's got to come back. Here it comes. Joe's got to come back. Here it is.
Yes.
She's like gearing up her energy.
So here's the thing. I'm really comfortable at talking about what I know. I'm really uncomfortable talking about myself. So I'm going to be much more shaky telling you where I was born and my favorite color compared to my subject, which I know inside out. I can, go on for 3 whole days. Other people will find more comfort in the kind of the easier content level stuff. I get more nervous when I have friends in the room. Other people get support from that.
So do I,
right?
for what it's worth. So do I.
Do you? Thank you.
Yeah. I don't want anyone who knows me in the audience.
My friends are horrible people.
All of them. They're all. I don't want Francisco's friends in my audience especially.
They don't appreciate my greatness. Why are you not laughing? I'm hilarious.
If they were awful people, I would be more comfortable having them, to be honest.
Every time my parents, either of my parents had ever come to one of my magic shows, I was like, I appreciate that you want to be here. I need you to sit in the back corner in the dark where I cannot see you. You need to be somewhere. Because I can't be the version of me that I am on stage when I see someone who knows who I really am or knows that stupid shit that I said when I was 8. I can't. It changes my own ability to see myself. So I'm totally with you.
For me is, am I cool enough for my very closest people? So that's what goes on through my head. So the way that I would frame this is presence through voice, gestures, whatever, becomes tricky when the stress is high enough. So whatever that stress shapes up to be for, different people. So I think that's where we begin to see the awkwardness and things kind of not hanging well together. When you begin to be stressed, that's when your voice crackles. That's when you begin to be either really monotone or too loud or too slow or whatever. And that's also when you begin to be rigid in your body, so you don't make the gestures that you would naturally make otherwise. So that's where I always kind of start from there, because I know that that's the foundation for the whole thing.
For the record, I don't think there's such a thing as too loud. I refuse to believe this is a problem.
Nor does my son.
Can have when speaking.
All right, great. We solved it. They both matter. Neither matters. Sometimes one matters more than the other. Come hire us. All right.
Nonsense. All nonsense.
Whatever version of that you need, we've got them here in this room. Thanks for listening. Visit thespeakerpath.com to start your speaker path, because ideas don't speak for themselves. People do.